Good evening, everybody. It's Steve with Real Progressives. Tonight, we're going to talk about some bad strategy. We're going to talk about a strategy that has left all of us wanting for many, many years. We're going to talk about a strategy that I don't think is actually a strategy meant for us to win through. We're going to talk about a strategy that I believe has been deployed to give A, the appearance of fighting for important causes, while B, actively pushing us to private sector solutions that literally make our lives unbearable. For the last 40 plus years, you have heard nothing but talk about raising taxes to pay for things. You have heard nothing but this idea that we, the little people, have to chase after tax dollars. We have to go after the rich people in order to afford nice things. We always hear about how we can't have health care because the military budget is bloated. We always hear all this stuff, but yet at the same time, in the same breath, they cut taxes, and they do it over and over again on the wealthy. But we sit there and we keep the same exact fight going on over and over again. And absolutely nothing ever gets passed. And then at the end, the Democrats sit there with a self-satisfied grin and they say to themselves, we fought the Republicans, but they were just too powerful. They were just too powerful. If it weren't for the Koch brothers, we could have had single payer by now. If it weren't for the Koch brothers, if it weren't for the Republicans, if it weren't for Paul Ryan, if it wasn't for Citizens United, if it wasn't for this, if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't. It's the same story every single time. So here's what you do. I don't know if you all have ever been in a bad relationship before, and you've done something maybe you probably wouldn't recommend to your kids to do, like lie. But let's just say you've been a liar before, and let's just say you're with somebody who you don't know how to break the news to. So you set up a situation where it looks like you're trying to be a good guy or you're trying to be a good girl, only to pull the rug out from under them and make a situation that you know is impossible, that it will not work, that it absolutely will fail. And you act and you fight for this thing you know can't work, only to go, we really gave it our best shot, guys. We tried. That's all we can do is try, right? The enemy is just so brutally tough. Folks, let's look at this for a minute. We already know, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that the Republicans will not raise taxes to pay for programs. They want to eliminate government. They think government is a waste, and I'll tell you why they think that. They think government is a waste because it takes away from people being able to make profit off of services that the government renders at no cost or no profit. So no one really gets rich on these programs the way that they could if they privatized them. So there's always this push to render government as weak and useless as it possibly can be. And then the flip side is to then say the only possible solution to, once again, another failed government enterprise is to, in fact, roll this thing out to the private sector and let people compete. Let the marketplace compete for patience. Let the marketplace compete for energy. Let the marketplace compete, and it'll drive down costs. It'll do this. It'll do that. Folks, I'm telling you right now, the Democrats want the same thing. The Democrats want the same thing. Hillary Clinton, going back just as recent as 2016, and even before that, she wanted to privatize Social Security. She wanted to do a lot of things privatized, and she wanted to go ahead and pay off her friends at Goldman Sachs and all the other Wall Street brokers. She was looking forward to being able to give away business to these companies, to these institutions, where we would end up paying the bill, where we would be stuck. This is the payola. But they act like they're fighting for healthcare. Healthcare should be a right. You hear Ro Khanna, healthcare should be a right. You hear Susan Smith, healthcare should be a right. these folks, all these individuals are saying the same things. It should be a right. But then what do, they put the poison pill into the bill. How are you going to pay for it? The Republicans say. And the Democrats always come back saying something like, well, we're going to do a Wall Street speculation tax, or, we're going to go ahead and raise taxes on the wealthiest 1%. And we're going to go ahead and raise taxes here and raise taxes. We're going to put a 5% surcharge on gasoline. We're going to do something else. We're going to make you pay a fee for your ACA, Obamacare. It's going to be a tax. You see what I mean? The Democrats always do that. You never, ever, ever hear the Republicans even try to answer the question of how they're going to pay for a tax cut. The country's broke. We're in debt up to our eyeballs. Freaking bullshit. We're in debt so far we can't see straight, Captain, but we're going to cut taxes because the debt's really not all that scary. Well, the debt really isn't all that scary. It's not scary at all. But that's not really the point. The point is you've got two teams playing a fake game of pinball, ping pong, whatever, where the Democrats fake like they care about single payer. They fake like they care about green energy. They fake like they care about ending student debt, about giving students college for free. They act like they care. But the reality is they put these poison pills in there that they know will make each one of these bills dead letter office. They know it's dead on arrival. They know it's not going anywhere. And what it'll end up being is the fallback position. The fallback position is always going to be the private sector solution. Look at what happened with the ACA. Obama didn't have any mandate to go to the ACA. He could have easily done Medicare for all. He had the votes, folks. He had the votes. He had a super majority. He could have put that over in no time at all, but they chose not to. They chose not to. Each one of these things is about tough choices, and we've got to roll up our sleeves. And I'm watching right now young up-and-coming Democratic Party candidates that are supposedly super, super progressive, running around talking about how they're going to pay for things, running around saying the same tired lies about Social Security and how the Republicans raided the trust fund and all this other stuff. Now, I'm telling you this because it's very important. The Republicans are bad. They always play the bad guy in this. They are always going to be the ones that say you can't have it. No, the answer is no. The Democrats fake like they care, and they say this, but all the while they put the poison pill in there, knowing full well they're not going to get it passed. And then they always come back to pushing whatever to the private sector, to boister the business sector, to boister the capitalists, to boister the wealthy, and to make each one of us in debt to some private sector, either job, program, whatever. Someone that has the power over your family's life, someone that can take away that because it's not a right. It's there as long as it's profitable to them. And if it's not profitable to them, they yank the carpet out. So we talk about this stuff, and honest to God, I wonder how many of these people are really, truly bought and paid for. I mean, for real, how many of them are bought and paid for to lie like this? And how many of them are truly ignorant? Folks, if you ever want to see single-payer health care, much less a New Deal, you need to see through the candidates' lies. And you need to see through the party lies. And I'm not just talking about the Seth Rich this and all the other stuff that's got the QAnon folks going crazy and all that crap. I'm talking about the legit stuff here. I'm talking about the subtle lie that they throw these poison pills out there to give off the very appearance that they're fighting tooth and nail for you, while simultaneously deep sixing the opportunity immediately. They're deep sixing all these programs that we need by putting the poison pill in there. I want you to think about this. I will keep bringing this part up until you get tired of hearing about it. It's one thing to bomb the hell out of Yemen, to bomb the hell out of Saudi, or to bomb the hell out of Syria, to bomb the hell out of Iraq, to threaten Iran, to threaten all these places, to go all over the world, creating coup d'etats and so forth. We never, ever, ever are hurting for the money to do these things. I mean, when I say that, I'm saying it knowing the answer, but I'm saying it because these are the questions people ask. They never understand why there's money for all these things, but there is never money available for this nation that creates its own money. So as you look at this new crop of Democrats, as you look at even the new crop of Greens that are trying to vie for office, and you look at the Republicans don't have to say anything. They get you spun up, yelling and screaming 2 minutes of hate, 1984 style, at the Republicans. They get you spun up. And you forget the fact that this is all a game. If Democrats actually wanted these programs, if the powerhouse, the party bosses wanted these things, they could have them instantly. They're very simple. They don't want them. They don't want them. And they will guide you by your heartstrings, making you think you're fighting up to the last second, tooth and nail, fighting hard. Patty Chambers, you say, I get it totally. Now what? That's what this is about. See, I look at this very differently than most people. And because of that, it makes people either quickly stop following, they block, they do whatever. But I'm a progressive through and through, a real progressive through and through. And I want a new deal. That's what I'm about. I'm not about one thing or another. I could care less about who's winning elections because I don't believe in any of them. I mean, when I say I don't believe in them, it's like you need to show me that you understand economics to get my interest. If you I'm watching these, literally throwing these stupid Occupy Dumbocrats memes out there talking about all this stuff. And they're literally getting blind, dumb sheep following them, bang at these things. And what it takes is for us, outside of all this, put all that bullshit off to the side. All of us to say, we must make sure that they can't hide anymore. We must make sure they can't hide anymore, and go to town halls and go to your media and go to your congressmen and your senators' offices. Show up at rallies. Crash these establishment rallies with signs that say these things, that talk about how economics is, and talk about how our nation creates this money from thin air with keystrokes. There's no issue with solvency. There's no issue with affordability. We can afford every one of these programs. They are literally lying to us to keep their donor class, the real donor class, these people that they're funneling the American gross domestic product to. They're funneling it straight to them. The poison pill is always going to be taxes. They always fake like they don't know the answer to the question. Well, how are you going to pay for it? Well, I guess so-and-so will have to pay their fair share. Folks, I'm going to give you a quick primer on why that's stupid in just a second. But I want you to understand that this is a setup. This is literally a setup for failure. They're doing it with a straight face. Honest to God, I want you to have health care. I want you to have health care. Zombified, I want you to have health care. All the while throwing up the poison pill of raising taxes to pay for it. Folks, Medicare for all consolidates and gets rid of all the insurance companies, basically. It also is incredibly efficient compared to our current system. Now, if you know anything about chaos and you know anything about economics, you understand that chaos breeds economic activity. So Medicare for all is not only less expensive because it cuts out a lot of the middlemen, Medicare for all is also far more efficient, and therefore it stymies a lot of economic activity. So by raising taxes to pay for something like Medicare for all, what have you done? You've actually destroyed the economy. You've cut out a lot of the economic activity that goes on that keeps people paid. Whether you like the rolls or not is irrelevant. You've made it efficient, which, it saves money if you're trying to save money. But if you're a government and your role is to spend money into existence to keep the economy going, because money starts with either a congressional bill or you and I going into private bank debt. Which do you want? Do you want our nation spending money out of thin air so that we have services? Or do you want you and I going into private unsustainable debt? Think about it. So the poison pill of raising taxes to pay for Medicare is a sham. It's an outright sham. The bill, HR 4, this stuff, the current Medicare for all bill is a complete crock of shit. It's a lie. It's intentionally set up the way it's set up so that it will fail, just like the ACA was set up to fail. This is the way that they force you to say, see, government really couldn't handle it. The U.S. is just so much different than the rest of the world. We couldn't do what they do. And so that's why it's going to fail. And then what do? They trick you. They trick you into believing that we've got to cut the military so we can afford these things. Now, mind you, this is not about keeping the military big, strong, and empire and all that other crap. I want to be very, very clear here. They're always trying to make you believe they have to find dollars, but dollars are never repurposed. A government spent dollar is spent one time by the government. And when the government sees that dollar again, it is deleted. It may spin around in the private sector, but once it's taxed, it is deleted out of the economy. That's how they keep the level, if you will, of money sort of in control. They spend money into existence, they tax it out of existence. So why in the world would we try to raise taxes to pay for Medicare for all unless we're completely ignorant, unless we're completely stupid, or unless we're doing it because we recognize that if we raise taxes for it, that it'll fail, and then we can say, see, we tried. That's what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. And you're going to hear it over and over again. Unfortunately, the average rank and file Democratic voter doesn't listen to anything other than their party bosses. They vote blue no matter who. They don't have a critical thought in their head, and they don't ever question. And if it comes down to it, the final curtain call is, well, we have to beat the Republicans. That's the give up strategy. And that right there is the theater that is politics. That's your theater. It takes you and I teaching each other so that we have a bloodless revolution, so that we have a mental and intellectual revolution that forces them to say, I guess we can't lie anymore. You guys figured it out. Because I'm telling you right now, I have an urgency. I have a tremendous urgency. My urgency comes from understanding that every day we delay these bills, people are paying for it with their lives. Let's see. I'm seeing some comments here. I want to get a hold of a couple of them here. Can you speak on regressive taxation for a few seconds? Okay. Regressive taxation. Let's talk about that for 2 seconds. And I want to get back onto what I'm talking about. When you make taxes for the poor, when you have taxes like FICA, that is a very regressive tax, or you have taxes on services that the regular small people end up paying the burden of, that is very regressive. A progressive tax plan puts the tax burden on the people that can most afford to lose that money, so to speak. But all taxes do is raise and lower buying power. That's all they do. So if they keep lowering taxes for the wealthy, but they don't do anything for you and I, our relative buying power stays unchanged. We are unable to do anything, but they are able to buy more and more and more and buy more influence, buy more goods and services, and have more freedom to do whatever it is they want while we struggle and we strive and we claw and we dig out. So regressive taxation tends to be things that hit the poor, not the wealthy. Okay. So there's no real need, ironically, to change the system. The system is fine. A free-floating fiat currency works fine in Japan. It works fine in Australia. It works fine in the UK. It works fine all over the place. The problem is that we have people that have been lulled to sleep that believe that a nation that creates its own currency has to somehow or another raise taxes in order to pay for stuff. And this is the give-up strategy that we must defeat if we have any intention of winning. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I have started to get very, very tired of people telling me to be calm, of people telling me to try to be patient with people. They just need to be taught, Steve. Steve, no, seriously, she's a good candidate. She just needs to be taught. He's a good candidate. He just needs to be taught. Steve, this is new stuff to people. Folks, in 1971, Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard. We were printing money from thin air like you wouldn't believe. We've been doing it for a very, very long time. Under the gold standard, we printed money and we devalued the currency. But in 71, something miraculous happened. We were taken off of the gold standard and we were put onto a free-floating sovereign fiat currency. The only problem is the only people that didn't figure this out were regular people like you and I. The wealthy figured it out. The neoliberals figured it out. And by making us fear inflation, by making us fear the national debt, by making us fear deficits, etc., they were allowed to siphon all of the money to the top. That's why you see the tremendous spike in wealth gap since 1972. It shot through the roof in the 80s under Reagan. And it continues to do a straight spike right up as the wealthy keep getting wealthier and wealthier without doing a thing, sitting there in their friggin' toilet, taking a crap, making big bucks. Every second it clicks away while you and I can't even pay our electric bill. I'm telling you, I don't think Democrats really want to win. Great point, Keith. Keith Evans says in 1945, he says that the New York Fed chairman, his name was Beardsley Rummel. Okay. And you can find this out there. It's very easy to find that taxes for revenue are obsolete. And that's going all the way back to 1946, 1945, 46. This is not new, folks. So acting like it's new, I'm just not giving you a pass. I refuse to give you a pass for not getting this. You keep running around whining about Republicans taking money from the Social Security Trust Fund. You keep whining about Republicans raiding this and raiding that. The reality is that nobody's raiding anything. There is no piggy bank. It's all created by keystrokes. Every single dollar the government spends is a brand new dollar. Every single one of them. Every one of them. Folks, every single dollar that the federal government spends is a brand new dollar. Now you'll ask, well, don't we sell bonds to foreign nations to finance our debt and blah, blah, blah? I want you to understand what that is real quickly. China does business with the United States. China sells a lot more goods and services to the United States than the United States sells to China. So China ends up with a lot of US dollars sitting there doing nothing. And so what happens is that the US government sells treasury bonds to offset deficit spending. Doesn't have to. There's no reason whatsoever to, other than to defend a positive interest rate at the Federal Reserve. By selling these bonds, it takes money out of the economy. It's a basic income, basically. But China uses its existing US dollars that it would otherwise just sit there and park at the Fed to facilitate trade back and forth with the US. And to take it out of circulation, they go ahead and they buy treasury bonds that earn a nominal interest. It's a savings account for their existing US dollars that they got selling goods and services into the United States. Please tell me you understand what I just said. This isn't a matter of China's buying the US. China has this money already. They can't use it back home. What are they going to do with US dollars at home? They got the Chinese yuan. What are they going to do with it? So they go ahead and they park it at the Fed. And they go ahead and they buy these treasuries. And they sit there and mature. And they earn interest. Why would China dump the dollar when the whole point of the dollars that it has are to facilitate trade with the United States? Think about this. Don't let the moment pass you by and be ignorant. It's really, really important that you get this. I find it shameful that people don't get this by now. You cannot buy a US bond in Japanese yen. You cannot buy a US bond in chicken necks or crab legs. You can't buy it in Chuck E. Cheese dollars or Bitcoin. But you can buy US bonds with US dollars because the purpose of these is to take the money out and provide a basic income for the owner. But this is an anachronism from the gold standard days where they sell these bonds. People earn a nominal interest and it bleeds off reserves. That's it. Folks, I'm telling you, I'm trying to tell you this so you get this through your head. There is no debt problem in the United States whatsoever. None. When I say none, I'm talking zero. Absolutely no debt. Does your bank consider it to be in deep debt because it's got savings accounts? People took their existing US dollars and earned their 1.7% interest or 2% interest. Does the bank consider that to be, oh my God, we're in debt? What are we going to do with all these savings accounts? No. The government already budgets the interest payments on those bonds. This is not like the Federal Reserve just creating money because it can. This is a matter of the US government serving monetary policy the way they choose to serve it. It could choose not to do that. It could choose to have a zero interest rate policy forever and not have to sell bonds if it didn't want to. It's of no concern. But they use it because this shuts you and I down. You and I think the government should be run like a household budget, which is another sign of a depraved mind. The government that creates its own currency is nothing like your household. It's nothing like my household. It's nothing like any household. It's a currency issuer, and we are currency users. When you ask one of these candidates how they're going to pay for something, the only answer that they should ever give is we're going to authorize the funds. Congress will authorize the funds. That's it. There is absolutely no reason for anybody to talk about a tax to pay for something. Literally, quite literally, folks, if I say this once, I'll say it a million more times. Federal taxes do not pay for programs at all. They do not fund spending. What taxes do is drive the need for currency. You have to have the currency to pay the tax. The tax is what gives the currency the value, because you can't pay your tax in chicken necks, dog legs, rabbit's feet, friggin' bunny hats. You can't pay it in gold bullion, and you can't pay it in shitcoin. Because a government dollar is spent first by the government and then taxed later. A government that creates its own currency doesn't require an income. Do you understand this? Why do Democrats support people that talk about paying for things by raising taxes? Why do Greens, why does Jill Stein say we're going to pay for things with raising taxes? Why do people accept that answer? Why does David Cobb say that? Why does Hillary Clinton say? See, they're all the same. They're all economically illiterate or saboteurs. Which one do you want to be? Do you want to claim ignorance and idiocy, or do you want to be a saboteur? It's one or the other. There's no in between. This is not an ideological thing. This is a fact-based thing. It's an operational truth. Which is it? An economic saboteur or an illiterate? Is Jill Stein an economic saboteur or an illiterate? Which is it? Take your pick, but it's one of two. Because you don't raise taxes to pay for anything. Which is it, folks? Is Trump an economic illiterate or an economic saboteur? Well, he hasn't said anything yet. He came out and said that the government can't go broke because it's got a printing press, which is silly, but it's the truth. It's not a printing press. It's a keystroke press. What about Hillary when she laughed at Bernie and said, how are you going to pay for it? And Bernie goes, a Wall Street speculation tax. Well, that's bullshit too, isn't it? We should tax the shit out of Wall Street, but not to pay for things. Taxes should be used to curb behaviors that we don't want in our society, like overly collecting dollars. When money pools at the top, that is a bad thing for society. It creates inequality. So that's a good reason to tax. But why do they keep coming out with, we're going to pay for things? We're going to pay for a Green New Deal by raising taxes. Who the hell says that knows economics? Not a soul. Not a soul. So I want you to understand something. Bernie has done something that nobody else has done. Whether you like him or not, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Bernie has brought in the MMT community, who is the only group in town that knows economics. The rest of them are charlatans and friggin' mystics. Because MMT doesn't tell you what to do with the money. It just tells you point blank how it works. It tells you how money is created, and it walks you through the balance sheets. It literally walks you through step by step by step. And because that's too much effort for people, they just fall back on Old Faithful and say, we're going to pay for it with another tax. But what Bernie did was he used what they call a Pigovian tax. A Pigovian tax, look it up, P-I-G-O-U-V-I-A-N, Pigovian tax is a tax meant to curb a behavior that is detrimental to society or to the market or whatever. Taxes on cigarettes would be considered a Pigovian tax. You might call it a sin tax. But Pigovian taxes are taxes that aren't intended really to raise revenue per se. They're intended to curb a behavior. So Bernie has been very, very good about using these Pigovian taxes to say that's how he's going to pay for it, because he knows that taxes don't pay for spending. But yet he knows that most of the sycophants of the vote blue variety, the lemmings, the sheep, believe so. So he's got to do something. But what we've got is a situation where we've got folks over here that want to eat the rich. And so what do? They talk about raising taxes in order to pay for things, not realizing that all along they're killing poor people while the poor people wait for these programs that never come to be in pursuit of eating the rich. Now, you might be gentle with those people. I'm not, because I'm rooting for the people dying. I'm rooting for them to live. I'm trying to help save their life. I don't care about your hurt feelings. I care about the lives you're killing by raising tax, by trying to find money. We're going to have to cut So let's walk through. Let's walk through a scenario real quick. We want to go ahead and we want to pay for getting rid of student debt at $1.5 trillion. However, in one fell swoop this year, we just gave the money $800 billion worth to the military without raising a nickel of taxes. In fact, we cut taxes. So fundamentally, that taxes didn't fund the military. Even if some jackass from Occupy Democrats sends you some pie chart to pretend like this is the allocation of your tax dollars. That's not how it works. I want you to realize that when you sit there and you say, we're going to cut the military to pay for student debt. Here's the way this process has to work if you're thinking that way. You got to pass a bill that cuts the spending from the military. It's part one. You're going to have a lot of fighting. A lot of communities are going to be sitting there gripping because they have strategically placed bases, not only throughout the country, but around the world. Those bases generate commerce, they generate economic activity for the communities they're in, and they employ people from the community. So you have to fight that fight. Let's just say everybody fights, takes a year, 2 years to get a couple cuts. Do you have health care? Do you have student loan forgiveness yet? No. Because you know what you have to do now? You finally cut your military spending. Didn't save a nickel because every penny is spent into existence. You don't save money when you're the creator of the currency. There's no need to save money. It doesn't work that way. So you still don't have student debt relief because now you've got to pass a bill to eradicate the student debt. Now you got to have that debate. So you wasted 2-3 years to cut some military bases, and the students are still carrying this debt. Now, I don't know if you've looked around, but there's an awful lot of people that are feeling pretty hopeless, don't have jobs, are underemployed, and are committing suicide at a ridiculous rate. You carry student debt you can't discharge. How many of those suicides do you think people wanting to cut the military budget before they pay for this, that, and the other because they want to use the money there to pay for that? How many suicides do you think they should own? I'm going to go with 100%. That's just me, though. I'm a pretty harsh dude. I don't have a lot of patience for people that don't listen. And I don't have a lot of patience for people that puff up and act like they understand when they don't. People are dying. This isn't a game. This isn't like some, hey, let's just go ahead and have a powwow. I'm telling you right now, the cost of being wrong is death for a lot of people. So again, we're back to we cut the military. Now you got to pass the bill just to get the student debt through. Who do you think is going to do that? Because you still think taxes have to be used to spend on that, right? This is the game, and you see nothing is going to get done ever, nothing. Because you refuse to learn this. You refuse to each one teach one. You refuse to force this issue. You refuse to go after these candidates, your friends, these people that you've been cheering on, your heroes. You refuse to go after Cenk Unger and all the other ones over there. You refuse to go after any of them. You literally let them off the hook, and you talk about Donald Trump all day long. I just sat there and showed you cutting the military. Let's say you did minor cuts, took you years to get it through, because it ain't going to happen quick. Because the economic activity that's so intrinsic to each area, based on the way that they build the seat covers for a tank, or whether they put the knobs and screws for a Jeep, or whether they go ahead and do the tires, or whether they do the MREs, or whether they're the ones that create the tents, or the jerseys, or the shirts, or the shorts, or the underwear, or the toothbrushes, whatever. They've got it throughout the United States. Every community has a piece of the military in it. When you cut it, you are going to bring about a depression, and they know this. It's on purpose. It's not an accident. They did this very strategically. So when people say they're going to cut here to spend there, do you see the order of operations? It's basic algebra. You do this first. It's a bridge to nowhere, because cutting spending doesn't equal new spending. You have to actually write a bill, negotiate, debate, fight for that bill. And nothing gets done. Nothing gets done. Nothing gets done. I'm serious. There's a point where you look at people, and I'm sure some people are going to be much more sympathetic about this than I am. But I'm telling you straight up that I have zero sympathy for ignorance. Not anymore. People have sat there and said, I'm a cult leader. Fuck you, man. Right in the eye socket. People have sat there and said MMT is cult. Fuck you right in the other eye socket. This is life and death. This is, God bless. Please, I don't think they realize, Lord. I don't think they understand. This is not a joke. This is real. This is real. When I see these vote blue sycophants running around talking about Trump's comb over, and I see all the cute millennials hanging out, backslapping each other and ignoring the stuff that we're talking about, I look at my son and I swear on my life, I get freaking rageful, like ready to explode, angry. This is not a game. This is real. And all one of these coolio millennials that sits there and puts the cute memes up that everybody clicks and likes, shares a million times, all they'd have to do is wisen up and care. But they don't. It's cooler to hang out at a latte shop, you know, getting their little leaf or heart in their whip foam, wearing skinny jeans, whatever. And I'm telling you right now, it's time to be done with that bullshit. It's time to be done playing patty cake. I can't take it anymore myself personally. I'm serious. I would love to leave and go to another country where they actually take care of their people, because our people are too stupid to fight back. They won't. They refuse. It's like, no. We've got to defeat Trump. It's the only thing that matters is defeating Trump. We can't possibly fight back against our own party, our own friends. I mean, do you realize, this is no joke. I started realizing this, and it really made me bitter. It really took me to a new place of bitterness today. Green Party people defend green. They're all green-enter, green this, green that. And they're all willing to backslap each other. If Jesse runs, hey, at least he's not a war-hawking whatever. Right? This is the excuses they tell each other. And they're not willing to hold each other to the account that they would hold a Democrat to. Hey, they aren't taking corporate money. They must be the good guys. Ignorance is lethal. Do you understand this? I don't care whether you're corporate bought or just stupid. Ignorance is lethal to the poor. And look at the Democrats, the same exact deal. They'd rather shit on the Green Party and shit on the third party efforts. They would rather sit there and look at Donald Trump's comb over forever than actually fix what's going on. I'm telling you right now, it isn't just about getting corporate money out of this equation. That's a good start, but that's not it. If you and I believe that the national debt is a problem, if you and I believe that we've got to reduce the public sector deficit so the private sector, you and I, goes into deficit, if that's what we believe, that's what they're going to do. If we believe we've got to raise taxes to pay for programs, that is precisely what they're going to do. If we believe that, then that's exactly what these sellout mainstream freaking entities, the Young Turks, CNN, MSNBC, all these places, they're going to say the same exact garbage. Tom Hartman has had Stephanie Kelton on countless times, and he still runs around talking about taxes paying for things. Why? Why do you think that is? Why do you think Cenk does that? Do you think it's because they don't know any better? Or do you think they just don't care? Or do you think they know who butters their bread? I'm serious. This is right there for them. Nina Turner, why aren't you talking about this? Bernie Sanders, keep getting MMT people out there, because I can tell you right now, if you don't do it, we're all screwed and we're all just wasting our lives chasing after a freaking movement that doesn't have a shot now. And I want this. I need this. You need it, but you got to know that you need it. You got to realize this is that vital. It's that vital. I look over there and you know what? I'm sure I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. I just can't care anymore. I'm fighting for people's lives. I'm not fighting for your fucking party. Kenneth Mejia has heard about MMT countless times, and he's running this happy-go-lucky campaign out there, talking about drinking bottles of water and sweating in the heat, and he's going door knocking, etc. But a revolutionary tells the truth. Why aren't you out there talking about this? Why are you staying silent on this? Why are Greens? I will give Rodolfo Cortez major props. His entire campaign is about this. When you look at his platform, it's all about this. He is a Green. He is a good Green. And there is one person that you can hang your hat on. But outside that, Bill Cimbrello's been doing it. Dave Strider was doing it. There's different people that were trying, but honest to God, when I don't see the people fighting back, that's our only hope. It's got nothing to do with politicians, got nothing to do with parties. It's got to do with we the people. Populism, but an informed populism, not just a freaking mass mob riot, but really informed, purpose-driven populism. That's what we need right now. I can't stress this enough. I'm extremely disappointed with people who ignore this, who called it a cult. I'm telling you right now, I think the people that called it a cult are literally murderers by proxy. I'm not joking. I'm sorry. They're probably some of your friends. I think they're murderers by proxy. I blame the deaths of those people that we could have been saving on them for sidelining people. I do. I blame them. I look them in the eye and I tell them to their face. There's too many people out there that are doing too little usefulness. They're doing nothing to support this. They're doing nothing but playing patty cake. You know, we get on people like MS-13 who kill people and are gangs and stuff. But you know what a political party is? Nothing more than a gang. That's my gang. And I'm going to stand with my gang no matter what. Doesn't matter if they're offing people. I'm standing with my gang because what do you want, the other guy? No, I want you to fix your gang. I want your gang to be useful. And if your gang's not useful, I'm going to create a different gang that is useful. Because I'm sick and tired of gangs lining up saying worthless shit that ends up fucking my child. I hope I didn't say that in a way that people didn't understand, because I was trying to be real direct there. Do you think people picked up on that? Do you think they may be confused what I said right there? I've had enough. And you should have enough too. If you know the truth here, you cannot keep sitting back, sharing pictures of your freaking omelet and the place settings and your turkey dinner and your trip to the beach. This is important. God bless you. It's important. I can't emphasize this enough. Why do people think that we've got to cut military spending in order to forward programs? Why do people sit there and say the Republicans raided the Social Security Trust Fund? Why do they say these things? Do you understand that a nation that creates its own money, every single dollar is keystroked into existence? Government checks don't bounce. We can afford everything we need. This isn't anger in terms of I'm just angry. Hell, I'm depressed. I'm sad. I feel like I can't take care of my own family because of the horrible people that inhabit this country that refuse to learn, that are fat and happy and are okay with the death and suffering because it hasn't impacted them yet. Folks, I didn't give you any algebraic equations. I didn't break out any trigonometry or physics. I just told you straight up the U.S. government creates its own currency and can't go broke. You can't repeat that, you've got problems. It's that simple. It's that simple. Well, that sounds good in theory. Well, gravity sounds great in theory too, doesn't it? But you don't question that when a brick falls on your head. I look around at our alternative media. You know, Garland Nixon, God love him. You know what he said the other day in one of the threads? I don't talk about MMT because I don't care about it. He did. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. I was like, he goes, you should respect other media outlets for following what they want to talk about and not push them to talk about MMT, not talk about economics. Every single thing I just laid out is exactly why this matters. But yet, Tim Black apparently deletes comments and stuff about MMT in his stuff. You know, other people like Debbie the sane progressive, she called it a cult. There's an MMT cult flailing around. You have Lee Camp, who on a podcast gave a nod to MMT. Said, well, you know, I kind of see where they're coming from. But he's not interested. He's told people countless times. We've sent people to him. He says, nah, I'm not going to talk about it. Jimmy Dore has been bombarded with activists begging him to talk about MMT. He says he'll get Stephanie Kelton on. If he understood this and he chose not to do it yet, she's been available. God knows I don't have any sway, and I've had her on the show. And if you can't get her, you got Bill Mitchell. If you can't get Bill Mitchell, you get Warren Moser. You can't get Warren Moser, you get Randall Wray. You can't get Randall Wray, it's okay. You can get Fidel Kaboub. You can't get Fidel Kaboub, you get Matt Forstater. You can't get Matt Forstater, you can get Pavlina Cherneva. Don't give me that shit. And if you can't get them, you can get me. And if I'm not good enough for your show, then that's okay. What's not okay is none of these alternative media outlets are actually talking about this. Are they bought and paid for? I don't think so. They're just unwilling to take a chance. They're unwilling to do the research. They're unwilling to learn. That really bothers me a lot. It should bother you a lot. I mean, it should make you crazy that they don't cover this. This This is your life and your death. This is your kids' future. This is climate change reversal. This is student debt eradication. They refuse to talk about it. I am so upset, so bitter that my kids are going to suffer because of cowardice. Let's call it what it is. Let's give them a white feather. I told you in the beginning, you're either an economic terrorist or a complete ignorant fool. Which is it? Take your pick. It's one or the other. There is no passes going forward. If we keep giving people passes, then what we're doing is we are prolonging the death and suffering of people that don't have time for them to figure, it's nice in theory. Let me ponder that for a moment. In theory, that is a privileged ass stance, isn't it? I don't have time for theories. This, my friends, needs to become the most important thing you can talk about. It is the most important thing you can talk about. And it's time to flood these people with truth. You see them you go to their comedy shows, you should be standing there with a sign. Why won't you talk about MMT? What are you hiding? It really is time to take the gloves off. If you realize that people are dying, for real. I mean, when I say dying, let's put that in context. People are homeless. People don't have health care, real health care. People can't afford their affordable care. They can't afford their deductibles. They can't afford their copays. They take time off from work. They have a bad day. They get fired. Generational poverty. People are doing whatever they can to survive. And many of them aren't. Many of them aren't surviving. And that is something that is completely preventable. Sometimes I wonder if I'm ever going to be able to make a difference, if real progressives will ever be able to make a difference. And I say, God, what choice do I have? What choice do I have? People aren't talking about it other than us. And the ones that are talking about it, it's a passing fancy. To have a moment, and then it slips away. This is ground zero. It is. And I laid out the case for why. Do you care about the suffering? Do you care about the people? Do you want a better life? Democrats and Republicans are both playing a game with us. And Greens aren't willing to learn. They're not willing to listen except for a handful. And many of them just sit there and quietly, even though they know the truth, they refuse to talk about it. That's cowardice. I'm talking as a father right now. I don't want my kids suffering because of ignorance that is easily solvable if people would get their head out of their ass. As a father, I can't bear this. The pain is too much to know that my kids are going to suffer for ignorance. As an activist, I grieve for your children. As a citizen, I grieve for this nation. And as a human being, I grieve for the planet. We got to do better, folks. No more pay-fors. They don't need to be paid for. We do need taxes, but we don't need to pay for things. That's not how this works. And it's time we called them out on it. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. Have a great night, everyone.